sorry y'all, Grandpa Nally and all of them, and I'm going to read it, and I hope I give it justice. As told by word of mouth and personal memories of Ray L. Christopher, grandson of Charles Lewis Nally, son of Margaret Edith Nally Christopher, with input into the whole family and their documents and memories, Joyce Ann Christopher Britton, Jeannie Dale Christopher Chadwick, Joseph Paul Christopher, Margaret Christopher Felix, and Mary Christopher Smith, Carolyn Sue Sykes, and Robin Adams, Brooke, and Francis's daughter. The story of the Ship and Nally family goes back as far as any of the oldest, now dead, members could remember, and by passing down tales, legends, and family histories in the pre-radio days, mouth to mouth. The earliest known relatives of Grandma Nally's Grandma Neely Francis Ship Nally's great-great-grandmother and grandpa. Her great-great-great-pa was a tall Scottish gentleman with a thick Scottish accent. He fought in the Revolutionary War from before West Point through Valley Forge and Trenton to after Cornwall's defeat. He was awarded a 10,000-acre land grant in the Kentucky wilderness between the Barren and the Green Rivers upon his discharge. While traveling to his new home from his discharge point, he passed through the Cherokee Nation land, and being a Scottish immigrant with a very strong drawl, he was welcomed as the Cherokees had relations with Scottish traders. While living there a week or so, he met an unusual-looking squaw with European features, long black hair, and bright blue eyes. She appeared to be European-Indian mix. Her Cherokee name was Come From Others, as she appeared in the tribal village as a young girl who couldn't remember her tribe and where she came from and was adopted. They married and continued on to the early Kentucky wilderness and established the Ship Farm just south of the Green River. She was taught English with a very strong Scottish accent. Grandpa Charles Lewis Nally, born on the Nally farm in the 1870s, he was son of a Civil War veteran, Mr. Clinton Nally, and his wife, Bethany Cecil Nally. His father was a Confederate who returned in 1865, bought 100 acres of the Ship land grant, and established the family. Lewis and Joe are of his children that I know, are all of her children that I know about. Lewis left the farm due to the hard times in the early 1880s. As a teenager, skilled in pistol and rifle marksmanship, he drifted west, starting his career as a horse and cattle trail hand and became a gunfighter in Texas. He became friends with another teenage trail hand, a young man who would later become an infamous outlaw, Billy the Kid. In 1882, he drove a herd of cattle purchased from the Fort Worth stockyards to Wyoming to a Mr. Tyndall, and while there, he fought on the side of the cattle owners in the Johnson-Lincoln Country Cattle War with William H. Bonney, the last one, and the Regulators. In the late 1880s, 1899 through 1900 or so, his cowboy days over, he returned to farming on the family land. In 1906, he fought the Kentucky Tobacco Wars on the side of the local growers. He was wounded in the neck during this campaign. He was too old for World War I, but his younger brother, Joe Nally, fought with the U.S. Army that was gassed by the Germans in 1918. He returned home, partially blind and with reading. Unable to work, he lived with various relatives, avoiding sunlight in a darkened room, venturing out at sunset and always nocturnal until his death in the late 1950s. Louis Nally married a local girl, Nellie Frances Ship, who lived on the Ship farm. Her mother was first cousin to Jesse James. Her father was returning Civil War vet, a Yankee that bought some of the Ship Revolutionary War land grant just south of the Green River next to the Nellie farm. Nellie lived adjacent across the road from the Nally family farm. The Nally family farm was lost during the Great Depression. Prior to the loss, due to low farm prices and unemployment, Louis Nally became a high-quality moonshiner. His reputation grew so great that the ATF revenuers raided the farm. They said in court testimony that this was the absolute best corn squeezins they had ever encountered. Louis was convicted, served 3 years, and upon release was encouraged to brew for the revenue agents, which he did until the repeal of the alcohol ban in 1933. He then sold to his local customers because his White Lightning was better and cheaper than store-bought. He maintained his alcohol business until evicted from the farm by the bank in the late 30s. Their son and daughters were born there in the late teens and early 1920s. Robert M., U.S. Army vet, World War II. Omer, U.S. Army, World War II vet, died in Louisville. I went to see Uncle Omer's grave last weekend, and I took pictures, but it was so busy I wasn't able to bring them today. Died in Louisville VA Center in 71. Lottie Mae, Margaret Edith, born 1923, and Francis. After the eviction, he became a sharecropper and moonshiner in southern Indiana for several years. That is when Margaret and my mother got drunk on fresh corn squeezins at about age 5 and passed out on the chicken coop floor. They then moved to his Ship relatives' pre-Civil War one-room log cabin near Shepherdsville, Kentucky, about 1940. His sons and relatives built onto the cabin to make it a 4-room home with large front and back porch. Uncle Robert said that when the family came over from Ireland in 1811 to join the pirate John Pierre Lafitte, how do you say that? Lafitte, to defend America against their sworn enemy, the British. The family name was Nallio. Didn't know how it was spelled though, but pronounced Nallio. Louis Nally worked for the Fulton County Highway Department from the early 40s until 1965. While there, he was injured. Then he was thrown off the back of a flatbed truck, and road crews traveled in and from that point could only work part-time. He retired in 1955, and in his later years, Louis Nally delighted in watching his favorite TV show, Gunsmoke. He relaxed in his black leather rocker and recliner, and often loudly remarked, "By damn, that's exactly the way it was." When this show was on, he had great difficulty keeping his corncob pipe lit. I can remember that pipe.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, he used that pipe to point with on Gunsmoke.
The Colt 45 1873 single action Army model of .45 long Colt black powder cartridge, 7.5-inch barrel, 6-shooter was the gun he carried, as Marshal Matt Dillon did on Gunsmoke. Louis Nally was very proud of that pistol, which he kept in a bedside table's drawer until he was quite old. I never knew that. His body was frail, but his bright blue eyes were sharp and clear as ever. The times he showed his gun to me were few, but you could see his care and professionalism in handling his 45, carefully and deliberately unloading and careful not to point it at anyone, even though it was empty. It had stag handles and showed 100 years of wear on a blued surface, but it was clean, oiled, and serviceable.
Emma?
I don't know which relative took the gun when he was moved to the nursing home in Campbellsville. The leather holster had pretty well dry rotted, but still served well. Does anybody know where the gun is? Has anybody ever? I never heard about it, so I don't know. I remember playing in the unlit house oil lamps that had no radio as late as 1948. When I misbehaved as a rowdy, rough, woolly boy and started fighting with my sisters, Joyce and cousins, Carolyn Sue and Linda Lou Sykes, Grandpa took me on long walks into the woods with his old single-barrel Winchester shotgun, as he had taught me to hunt rabbits, squirrels, and other critters. He had lots of patience. I remember him getting mad at me only once when I drowned three kittens in the rainwater barrel, not because of the cat, but because I ruined the drinking water.
I think my brothers may have helped you. They relay that story. They got in trouble.
No, that's not a made-up story. That's a real.
You can sit there.
Wildcat duck in them days, wasn't it?
Margaret adds, one day after church, the kids, Uncle Robert, Aunt May, Uncle Homer, Aunt Frances, and Mom, was sent outside to play and was told not to get dirty. So the kids, being bored and kids being kids, Uncle Homer came up with the idea, baptize the chickens. Overly excited with the idea, they ran to get all the chickens they could carry. Now while this is occurring, the kids were quite overly quiet. Grandpa, after a few minutes, starts looking for the kids. He knew way too well that the kids are never that quiet without something going on. The baptizing involving the chickens were being carried out by the side of the house in the rain barrel that held the family's drinking water.
I'm glad I didn't drink any of
Each
that
boy, Robert and Omer, would take turns praying for the chickens, dunking each chicken in and out of the water, baptizing it. The girls, Mom, Frances, and May, would take the chickens from the boys, wipe them off, and put them on the ground. Now, a few were held a little too long under the water, so when they were placed on the ground, they would waddle around as if they were in a drunken state. Mom said that when Grandpa turned the corner, they all started to cry because they knew they were in for it. And yes, they did get it. But Mom said that
Hold your
Grandpa
knees.
always talked about the day they baptized the chickens, his flock. Always talked about baptizing the chickens with a smile on his face. But after that day, they never played baptize the chickens. The boys got a whipping for not just doing it, but for doing it in the rain barrel, the drinking water. And the girls got the same for not telling. I would have loved to have seen Grandpa's face when he turned that corner. The kids, when they saw him, hope you enjoy the chicken story. That was from Margaret. His wife, or maybe Margaret's telling this, his wife, Nellie Ship Nally, died in their pre-Civil War home on